Buck, I couldn't help but laugh. Yesterday evening, when just as the Republicans are officially voting on all the rules and taking control of the House, news breaks that Joe Biden, the man that Barack Obama once memorably said, don't underestimate Joe's ability to blank things up. Joe Biden effectively torpedoed his own attorney general's investigation into Donald Trump's classified documents while, wait for it, having his own inappropriately stored, illegally controlled classified document scandal. This became aware, according to the media reports, on November 2nd, before the midterm elections. It was covered up, so we did not know about it until yesterday evening. And I just want to play this cut for you from, I believe it was September, of Joe Biden being interviewed and explaining to everyone that it was indefensible for anyone to ever have classified documents. This was on 60 Minutes. Our good friend Joe Biden stepping right into it. Enjoy.
When you saw the photograph of the top secret documents laid out on the floor at Mar-a-Lago, what did you think to yourself, looking at that image?
How that could possibly happen. How anyone could be that irresponsible. And I thought, what data was in there that may compromise sources and methods? By that I mean names of people who helped, or et cetera. And it's just totally irresponsible.
I mean, come on, man, not a joke. Basically could have just, we could have gotten invaded by the Icelanders or something based on the scribbles on the napkin, man.
This, Buck, it's funny because it's so Joe Biden-esque, and also because it puts all of those media histrionics. Remember, like, Michael Beschloss was like, oh, this is basically like you should be executed for this.
Yes, treason.
Right? Like,
the lunatic brigades came out in full force on this issue. And remember, Clay, so now this is the second time we've gone through this, because initially with Hillary, it was, come on, not her fault, little classified here and there, no big deal. And then it's, oh my gosh, they found documents at Mar-a-Lago. Trump is literally worse than Hitler and so irresponsible. And then it's, oh yeah, they created some fake think tank at a university for Biden, and they was classified. By the way, I know the classification system. This was classified. It was TSSCI, top secret compartmented information, which is based upon the source derivation. That's how they decide what the classification is, right? People often wonder, why is something secret versus top secret versus compartmented or confidential? And there's other much lower levels. I mean, confidential is like, I had a sandwich yesterday when you work in the CIA. The confidential is pretty much a joke. But TSSCI is real stuff, and they're acting like this is no big deal. Well, it either is or it isn't, right? I mean,
yes.
This is the point we get to where you see the hypocrisy laid bare. But Clay, my theory on how they're going to play the documents, or rather the special counsel investigation at this point, is it's going to be very much like Russia collusion. Russia collusion, unless you were an abject moron who worshipped at the church of MSNBC, you understood. Right? People understood that Russia collusion was not a real thing, but then it turned into the obstruction of the investigation into the fake Russia collusion. I think the only play here for the Jack Smith special counsel is going to be, oh, it wasn't that he just had some classified there. Because again, the chain of custody issue, did Trump, it's not like Trump had it in his back pocket. They're going to say the obstruction of the investigation into the mishandling of the classified. That's the real, and to us, that's crazy. But if you watch enough CNN, it's defending the Republic.
I understand that argument. I think this ends any kind of prosecution that can happen for classified documents. Because I think we don't know how many classified documents Biden has, But when you combine it with Biden and Hillary both having their own classified document scandal of some sort now, I think that cancels out Trump. I think they may still try to get him on some sort of January 6th related charge, and I don't know what the heck that would look like. But I think I really think this is such a screw up by Biden that it takes the classified charges off the table for Trump.
So, but you think they won't try to keep the investigation going based on obstruction?
I think he'll come out over this classified documents, Merrick Garland that is, and sort of wag his finger about how inappropriate it was and how you may be able to make a case for illegality, but the fact that Biden has now done it himself, and I imagine they're going to have to put their own special counsel on the Biden investigation, is just, I'm laughing because it's just so utterly incompetent.
But they're not going to. I mean, you notice there's a very clear pattern. The Democrats never get special counsels to look into their stuff, right? There's no chance Merrick Garland does a special counsel about this for Joe Biden. There's no way.
I think he will. And I think he'll have to do it.
I don't know how many stake bets we're going to rack up here, but there's no way.
I think he will, because I think the pressure from the House Republicans is going to be so significant that Merrick Garland can't conduct this investigation on his own.
But they're going to say there's no investigation. They know what happened. There were some documents. They returned them right away. It was an oopsie. And then they're going to say, and I hate making the argument for the other side.
I think it's important.
Because it's my voice.
To think about how they're going to play.
Right. It's my voice, like, running their playbook. So I know people are like, why is Buck saying this? Because I know how these lunatics think. I know what they're going to do. They're going to say, oh, but it wasn't just that there was classified. It's that there was super secret nuclear, secret squirrel classified, and that Trump wouldn't give it back right away, and that he obstructed and he lied. They're going to play that game for a little while. But on this one, they're going to say there's no need for a special counsel because there's no additional investigation needed because they handed the documents back right away. So, by the way, I agree with you that this neutralizes this should neutralize any charge against Trump for mishandling classified. But I never thought. And, we had Andy McCarthy on to think about this one months ago. It was never going to be the classified mishandling. It was going to be the obstruction and the investigation of it that they were going to get him on. Do you think that goes away now entirely?
I think it's going to be just so hard to. I always try to take a step back and think, okay, let's pretend that you're trying to explain this to a jury. It's really difficult, I think, to explain why Hillary and Biden are able to have classified documents and there's no issues, particularly with Hillary, even as it comes to obstruction. But for Trump to have it, it's unacceptable. I think your average person out there just thinks, oh, all politicians do this now, and this is just messy, right? And I think that's hard. That's a hard hurdle to get over if you're Merrick Garland. I would love, Buck, to have seen his reaction when he was notified that Biden had illegal documents. And I tweeted this, and the president, Trump, shared it from his Truth Social account. But I do think that if I'm a Republican, I am hammering home, wait a minute, why did you not conduct an FBI raid of all of Joe Biden's residences to see if he had any other papers from before he was president, right? Because right now you could justify him having classified documents while he's president.
Yeah, he can have anything he wants and he can do anything with it, right?
But these documents pre-exist his presidency. And one thing I don't know, Buck, this is a good question for you, and maybe for a privilege analyst out there. The vice president cannot declassify. He doesn't have that privilege, right?
Correct.
So when Biden was vice president, he couldn't declassify the documents that he has, which is one argument Trump has made as it relates to the documents in his possession. But if you then become president, can you declassify documents from when you were vice president or other? So he could argue, in theory, if that privilege exists and is retroactive, that he had somehow I don't know what the arguments would be legally.
But hold on, because we would then use the funny thing here is that there's a template based on the exact arguments they were using against Trump. Remember, you had all these lawyers and attorneys general and people coming on TV who hate Trump to say he can't just wave his hand. There has to be a process.
Yeah, right. That's
there
right.
has to be a paper trail. There has to be something to show that they're declassified. Well, in that case, I can assure you, the Biden. First of all, can we just take a moment, Clay? The notion of a Biden think tank. Hey, man, we're thinking, sitting around. It's not a joke. There's thoughts going together. 7 little chipmunks sitting on a branch. It's crazy town that this even existed in the first place. But I think there's also an important point that comes out of all this, though, because, we were going back and forth. We've had people on the show. I had 2 former attorneys general, that's always got to get that one right, tell me they thought Trump, as of August of this last year, likely to be indicted in some relation to the Mar-a-Lago obstruction document situation, right?
Have you talked to those people since this Biden news came out?
Well, see, what I think is that since we didn't know about, this is that factor that you can't take into account. Neither you nor I nor anybody else involved in this who's not, part of the DOJ right now knew that this was an outstanding issue. This changes the calculation in ways that we couldn't have known then, right? Because at some point this is going to come out. And so because they had the issue of the election and the not wanting to move right after this had happened or right around this information coming out, they may have put themselves into a situation where now the folks who thought Trump will be indicted would say, oh no, now at this point, there's no way that they could pull that one off. Public opinion would be too against them. So I'm just saying this is, we sit here, we analyze, we think about what's going to happen, and, we even make bets. I think he'll be indicted. I don't think he'll be indicted. Well, if you can't know what the real calculation is at the Merrick Garland DOJ if you don't know that this is going on, because this changes the game.
This ends, I think, the classified document portion of the charges here. Now I think it puts more onus on the January 6th side of the investigation.
If they want to really go, the all along here has been fomenting insurrection. Charge a former president and at the time sitting president of the United States
and current president candidate,
right? But charge that guy, Donald J. Trump, with fomenting insurrection. Democrats are crazy. Are they that crazy? I ask it openly. I don't know.
I thought, Buck, that classified documents was the easier charge to bring.
Oh, for sure.
By far.
It's a process charge.
So this, to me, this Biden screw up takes that off the table, in my opinion. And now I like as recently as yesterday on the show, I would have said I think they're going to try to charge Trump with something. I don't know. The January 6th charges to me have always been more tenuous and more directly politically motivated. I think they're in a really tough spot now with these Biden revelations.
Think about what it would require for them to bring a charge about the January 6th situation against Trump. The administration that has clearly, systematically violated the First Amendment rights of countless American citizens through collusion with Facebook and Twitter. And we know that beyond that administration that is the most Orwellian anti-First Amendment administration we've ever seen in our lifetime would then be criminalizing the First Amendment actions of a sitting president of the opposition party.
That's well said. That's a tough putt to sink.
Exactly. I'm with him on that one for sure. We are having some Biden document schadenfreude here today. We are seeing once again the Democrats. They do have a remarkable habit, Clay, of accusing the other side of doing exactly what they're doing, right? They've done this on a whole range of issues, but once again, they've certainly, election denialism. Who are the ones who would deny elections again? We could go into that. That'd be more interesting. You have people recognizing that the Biden administration now is going to be explaining to everybody, and that the Biden mouthpieces in the media are going to be explaining to everybody how, well, this classified isn't like a big deal. Can I just point out, this was at some university like in an office on the floor, under lock and key at Mar-a-Lago with Secret Service everywhere and
way safer
and surveillance cameras, much higher level of security. And you could say it's also a much bigger target, but there's at least some belief. I mean, some college kid could have walked in and been like, hey, look at this. I got some TSSCI on the floor. You know, it would have been on.
You and I have been through Mar-a-Lago security a couple of times. For people who have not been there, it's not particularly easy to just walk around Mar-a-Lago. There are Secret Service agents everywhere, as opposed to being on a random college campus. The security argument is a tough one for them to make on this front, right? Trump's documents were better secured inside of Mar-a-Lago than these documents were from Biden. And Buck, one of the things that's coming out is, guess where some of these classified documents might have, guess what some of these classified documents are related to, according to reports coming down right now.
Not Kim Jong-un and, love letters and birthday menus.
Ukraine, which is going to bring back up again the Biden crime family's connection through Hunter Biden to all of the money that he was being paid for Ukraine. And remember, Trump was right to raise many of the issues that led to the first impeachment. And everybody forgets that was a phone call with Zelensky, who's now a hero.
Second impeachment.
I can't even keep track of which
it was the second one. Right. It is tough.
I thought the first impeachment was Ukraine.
I'm sorry. No, the first impeachment was Ukraine. The second one was the Nancy. Yeah, you're right. There was a special counsel, impeachment 1 and impeachment 2. I'm the one who's getting confused.
They want to impeach him for everything, but we'll come back. It is interesting that some of these documents might have involved Ukraine, which ties them all together. Buck, I wish we could put together our phrasing and just completely mock and deride and nail. Remember the circles closing in? All the different things
the
that
walls
they say.
Are closing in. This time he's gone too far.
So CNN is actually journalisming. And this story just broke about 10 minutes ago. Exclusive. This is on CNN's website. U.S. intelligence materials related to Ukraine, Iran, and England found in Biden's private office, source tells CNN. And I'm reading the opening paragraph here. Among the classified documents from Joe Biden's time as vice president are U.S. intelligence memos, briefing materials, covered topics including Ukraine, Iran, and the U.K. A total of 10 documents, classification marking, were found. These were found, I think it's worth remembering and continuing to discuss, on November 2nd, allegedly, 6 days before the midterm elections. The report is that there was they were cleaning out his Washington office, which was, again, the documents discovered November 2nd, 6 days before the midterm elections. Matter only became public yesterday. Source told CNN a personal lawyer for Biden was closing out the downtown D.C. office Biden used as part of his work with the University of Pennsylvania. The lawyer saw an envelope, I'm reading directly from the CNN article, with markings indicated they were the former vice president's personal documents, opened the envelope, noticed there were classified documents inside. The lawyer closed the envelope and called NARA, which is the National Archives and Records Administration. Okay, so that is the report. Now, Joe Biden was just asked about this at the White House. We have audio of him ignoring that question that's being shouted at him. Let's play that. That's a cluster. Biden probably can't understand. Let's be honest. He can't understand normal conversations. But, Buck, the fact that this would involve Ukraine, the country that Hunter Biden was making millions of dollars off of, that involved the first impeachment trial, this is, I got a lot of questions, but this is, of all the countries where the classified documents could have originated, This is not a good one for Joe Biden to be connected to because it ties back in Hunter Biden and the laptop and all the other Biden family crime shenanigans and allegations in a way that is very messy for Joe Biden.
Yes, it's also a meaningful national security. I mean, among the most meaningful now because of the billions and billions of dollars that we're pouring into Ukraine. This is very much a live issue for our security interests and an important one. So it's not like he had classified in reference to a state dinner and a conversation had sidebar between the, attaché and the ambassador to the Bahamas or something. This is stuff that's meaningful, right? I mean, if you've got TSSCI relating to Ukraine, people are dying there every day.
Iran, kind of a big deal.
Yeah, and you've also got the reality of the escalation that is happening there right now. And, we don't talk about Ukraine that much here because, well, one, it's weird because I want to say it's not our fight. And in principle, yeah, I mean, I agree with that. But we are funding it. So in a way, it has become, because of the Biden administration's choices, it has become our fight. We're now going to give them Patriot missiles. I remember I was on Fox early on in the conflict, Clay, at the beginning of last year. And the topic was, could we give them fighter planes that they could use themselves? And there was a bit of a consensus that might be a little too far. Now we're giving them Patriot missiles.
Yeah.
I mean, we've already been giving them long-range artillery. We've already been giving them billions and billions of dollars, small arms. And, there's the stuff that also we know about, and there's the stuff that won't be reported in our media. But trust me, the Russian GRU, their military intelligence, they know about, which would be training from Western allies that's going to the Ukrainians.
I read in the Wall Street Journal they're going to give them tanks. Did you see this from Europe?
Thought that, I think we're sending them right now armored personnel carriers, APCs, and there's discussion of giving them our main battle tank, the M1 Abrams, in some form. It would probably be a little bit stripped down, not have all the bells and whistles. We tend to do that whenever we sell or give, in this case, military machinery to allies. We tend not to give them our absolute top line stuff for obvious reasons. But giving them battle tanks, I mean, at what point have we crossed that line that we all sort of knew was there in the beginning of this? Biden's team was like, oh, no, we don't want to get into an open war with Russia. And I know Tucker last night on his show on Fox raised this question. It's fascinating. So is Ukraine winning this war or not? Because you do get this sense of Zelensky, the great conquering hero who's held back the Russians. What's going to happen in Ukraine when this thing is all over, which could be many months, perhaps even years away? What does that country even look like? How functional is it?
It feels like we've basically just gotten a total stalemate where both sides are dug in and there's not going to be a lot of movement moving forward.
There is literal trench warfare, Clay, about
Yes.
this goes back to even before this, but actual trenches where guys are lined up and there's artillery and they're doing long-range engagements with sniper rifles, and that's what's going on.
Yeah, it doesn't feel like there's going to be a lot of movement anytime in the near future. And on the Ukraine, by the way, classified documents, Buck, if you heard that Joe Biden had 10 classified documents, why would the first response not be, why do you assume that he only had classified documents in one office, right? If they found 10 in one personal office for Joe Biden in Washington, D.C., why wouldn't your first thought be, well, if he's got 10 there, why wouldn't he have some at his beach house? Why wouldn't he have some at his private residence? Why might he not have some inside of the White House? Now, there's a complicating factor here, as we talked about, that he's the president of the United States right now. But these are documents that predate his time as president of the United States. These are old papers. If it is a colossal mess right now.
I want to point out, too, because the Hillary thing gets... They in Soviet fashion, try to rewrite the reality of what Hillary Clinton as Secretary of State did. And I was involved in these debates. Clay, I remember people at CNN, when I used to go on and say what Hillary did was atrocious, and they were sneering and laughing because I was like, if this is the only system she was using for her State Department communications, there's definitely classified information, and that's definitely against the law. And they were, oh, that's ridiculous. Hillary's a genius. She would never have classified. Yeah, as we all know. But, you know, they were paid to be the shills that they were, and that's how that went down. What Hillary did was set up a system meant to evade records requirements and had classified on that. But she created this whole end run on effectively FOIA. And I think it's because she was worried that somebody was going to say, hey, so-and-so made a big donation to the Bill and Hillary Clinton Foundation. He expects a meeting in Foggy Bottom, right? I mean, there were reasons why she's trying to avoid FOIA, but she set up a whole system to get around the protections that you have in place for classified information. So it was it wasn't like, oh, she took a briefcase out one day and there were a bunch of papers and something was mixed in together.
It was more devious than it's been reported.
Way more devious than that. Now with Biden, one area where I do think this could be actually a little more damaging is for a lot of people, is this kind of his Mr. Magoo moment? Is he leaving papers? Do they make that part of the defense, or does that then open up the whole Pandora's box of why is this guy who clearly has been missing a lot of steps still the president? You know what I mean? They could do the absent-minded professor thing, except he's the president.
And again, if he had 10 in this one office, why would you not think that he would have classified documents in his beach home, in his old house, before he moved into the White House? I mean, again, the challenge of distinguishing between current and past classified documents with the current president is a mess. But the fact that Ukraine involved to me, this makes it hard not to connect Hunter Biden and all of the alleged improprieties associated with him. Remember, they've tried to kind of create a Chinese wall, for lack of a better term, between Joe and Hunter Biden and say, well, Hunter Biden was a drug addict, but his business dealings had nothing to do with Joe Biden. Well, if in his post-presidency, Joe Biden has classified documents from Ukraine when his son was making millions of dollars from Ukraine, that starts to raise a lot of issues about whether there was actually that Chinese wall that existed between the two. I cannot get over how amazing, if you were trying to design a story to perfectly reflect how partisan and histrionic and completely dishonest much of the left-wing media has become. Buck, I'm not sure you could come up with a better story than Joe Biden also having classified documents in his possession in flagrant violation of all standards for holding classified documents. Now, you and I know this led to the Mar-a-Lago raid. We had months of discussions surrounding how inappropriate Trump's behavior was. Some left-wing shills even suggested that Trump should get the death penalty. They said that this was totally it excluded him from ever being able to be president again. And I asked our staff, Buck, you and I were talking off air after we opened the show. He said, there's got to be some good collections of audio to perfectly demonstrate this insane hypocrisy when it comes to dealing with classified documents. So let's have some fun diving through a collection. This is from the first one here, August of 2022. John Avlon says that Trump now has to forfeit office, that he's disqualified from future office. I want you guys to be able to enjoy CNN's immediate reaction. Sounds like, based on CNN's reaction to Trump, Joe Biden has no other options but to resign the presidency immediately. Listen.
There's a law in the book that directly relates to the destruction of official documents. And here's what it says in part. Whoever willfully and unlawfully conceals, removes, mutilates, obliterates, falsifies, or destroys official documents shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 3 years or both, and shall forfeit his office and be disqualified from holding any office under the United States. You got that last part? The legal consequence of destroying official documents includes being disqualified from holding any office under the United States. Any office. That would seem to include the office of President of the United States.
So destruction, to be fair, of documents is disqualifying. Having classified documents, as Joe Biden does, I think probably if we'd asked John Avlon, he would also say that's probably a disqualifying factor.
First of all, when I was in the CIA, we would destroy
All
government
the time.
documents all the time. Just
Yeah.
so everyone's clear on how this isn't just as clear as, oh, you destroy a document, you go to prison forever. They have this thing called burn bags, where we would take documents that were classified, you put them in the burn bag, and then they're incinerated to destroy the... That's destroying documents. We do this all the time, so it's not as straightforward as just, oh, if you destroy it, obviously you don't keep all documents forever. Clay, none of this ever made sense.
Yes.
They told us, by the way, I mean, I'm looking back at August 12th of 2022 during the Mar-a-Lago, when the story came out, it was nuclear secrets. I tweeted out, if they end up claiming that Trump had super duper secret documents in a locker in Mar-a-Lago, get ready for them to tell you the documents are way too secret for us to see. Yeah. That's exactly what happened, by the way, because this was also obvious. Why would Trump go out of his way to have, very sensitive national security information isn't something that you're going to want to hold on to for nostalgia purposes. It makes, I mean, when I mean very sensitive, I mean truly sensitive, things that would be dangerous to public safety. It's outrageous. The whole thing is completely insane. It never made any sense whatsoever. And now we're just seeing... I don't even like using the word hypocrisy because they don't care. That's the problem. Hypocrisy never bothers Democrats. They're like, yeah, we do it because we can. We have our media shills go, oh my gosh, you can't hold office. Look at this. It's in the statute. We have them do that because we can. And we want to destroy you. And we don't care. We have no principles. That is the Democrat mantra.
We still have to play, I think, some of this because I'm reading. These are great. Rachel Maddow reacting with joyful glee to the fact that Trump had classified documents. Here's Rachel Maddow on MSNBC.
Tomorrow is the day when you're going to want to buy the physical copy of the newspaper. You're going to want to buy it and fold it carefully, maybe put it in a little archival paper or parchment if you don't have that. Just put it away someday. You might, depending on how saucy you're feeling, you might want to just note, perhaps in archival ink in the margin of tomorrow's paper, note anniversary of Richard Nixon's resignation as president. People will get a kick out of that some years down the road.
Buy the newspaper. I wonder if she's going to tell her people today, Buck, got to go out and buy the newspaper now that Joe Biden has classified documents. And then our good buddy, how about Stephen Colbert, who's truly lost his mind? Here he was reacting when Donald Trump had confidential documents.
It may be hot outside, but in here, it's Christmas. Because yesterday, we all got the present we wanted. FBI agents raided Mar-a-Lago. That's the most beautiful sentence America has ever produced.
The most beautiful sentence America has ever produced, Buck. That's by the way, comedy show. It's ostensibly that Stephen Colbert is reacting to the Mar-a-Lago raid. I wonder what he'll say about Biden now, the documents he has.
Isn't it also amazing that they lecture us constantly about threats to our democracy and our institutions, and they get all huffy and they tear up and they think about some of the grandmothers taking selfies outside the Capitol on January 6th, and they say it's worse than Pearl Harbor and all this other stuff. And they think it's absolutely hilarious and justified to send the FBI in to the residence of a former president to see some old dusty documents that nobody gives a crap about. Give me a break. Does anyone really believe at this point, Clay, that if there was super secret nuclear codes, oh my gosh, we're all going to die in the Mar-a-Lago basement, which nobody was even seeing anyway, that someone wouldn't have leaked that now? We wouldn't hear more about it. They tried this, it's the nuclear codes or, the nuclear information or whatever it was. I'm sure we would know a lot more if it was actually something that normal people would respond to with, oh, wow, that's really reckless and a big problem. No, they can't let us know, because if they did, people would say they just use this as a pretext, like everything else with Trump, like the FISA warrants against his campaign, like the FBI Russia collusion special counsel investigation, like the impeachment, which you got right the first time around of the phone call, the impeachment the second time around of what exactly? Saying things that Nancy Pelosi didn't like on the day of January 6th. It is never going to stop with these loons. They're never going to shut this down.
And I do think, for those of you who weren't with us in the first hour, this is significantly narrowing the route by which Merrick Garland can bring charges. Because if you missed the CNN revelation, they reported that Joe Biden had classified documents relating to Ukraine, Iran, and the United Kingdom. The Ukraine story is going to be a mess for him. But this effectively takes the classified documents and what is going to happen for them off the table, right? Because I think ultimately what will end up happening now with this is Merrick Garland will come out and he will wag his finger about the importance of everyone involved in government respecting the security of classified documents. But, Buck, it's worth mentioning here, these were in the National Archives. You would know this better than a lot of people. Do we think if it's so incredibly secret that the National Archives should be in control of this? Like, if it's really to the essence of, oh my God, our government's future is at stake, why would we want the National Archives to have these, right? Like,
what is the point of, if we're protecting sources and methods, which is always what they fall back on with this, keeping something in the National Archives where it will just collect dust for whoever knows how long? For what purpose could it possibly serve? If it's about presidential records, fine, but there's no point in having presidential records that no one, including future historians, could review because it's too sensitive. And by the way they do classification is by when there is a review date, and the review dates can be in 20 years, 50 years. They can stretch these things out as long as they want. So, yeah, again, we get back to what purpose this is. But Clay, it's funny because you and I know what the purpose was. Or rather, what this was all about. They have convinced their audience that Donald Trump, it's not just that they oppose him politically and they don't like him personally. He's a traitor and he's a criminal.
Yes.
And they have promised their audience, meaning the Democrat base and the Democrat Party, that he will be in handcuffs at some point. And even if they can't manage to slip those bracelets on him, they have to keep this story going. Let me look at Rachel Maddow. She has built the biggest career surge ever for herself, in the history of her MSNBC show, etc., by constantly overpromising and just telling people stuff that's bullcrap. And the audience doesn't care because they just want to be told Trump is Hitler and we're going to get him. That's it. If you do that, you get ratings. You're treated like royalty in the left-wing media. That's all you have to do. It's very destructive. It's really quite divisive. Destructive of the brains of the imbeciles who watch this stuff and believe it.
And it's also the big lie. People want to talk about the big lie as it pertains to Trump and people who might support him. The big lie all along has been that Trump was a Manchurian candidate, that Russia collusion, which 6 years after the fact, the Washington Post said, oh, yeah, there's nothing here. They haven't rescinded any of those Pulitzer Prizes. And what is so interesting to me about this is the left-wing media painted itself into a corner on classified documents. And they don't. I think we have one more clip here to play, a 30-second medley of them reacting gleefully all over the place. And then it turns out that Joe Biden's actually done it too. Let's play this one more further reaction of the hypocrisy.
Tomorrow is the day when you're going to want to buy the physical copy of the newspaper.
Because this is a night where you are going to remember where you were.
Obviously, as big as stakes as you can have.
Perhaps the orange jumpsuit is forthcoming.
Vladimir Putin, he doesn't believe in the rule of law. She doesn't. They all systematically work to break down the rule of law, just like Donald Trump.
If I were like Donald Trump's lawyer right now, and thank God I'm not, I would be advising my client to be telling my family, I am looking at jail time and we should, make plans accordingly.
And what did I say? They promised their audience that Trump's going to prison. They've been doing this for years. They can't step down off that ledge. It's really actually at some level, Clay, that they've created this serotonin feedback loop of I don't like Trump. Trump is awful. And so it's just tell the people that Trump is going to go to prison. Tell the libs that Trump is going to get frog marched out of Mar-a-Lago. And you do, and you get rewarded. And they never care that it never happens. They just want to keep hearing it.
What about the taxes? They spent years like, oh, when the taxes come out, you're going to find out how disqualifying they were. They came out and it was like maybe a 6-hour story. Nobody even cared.
This is all tied into one of my broader theories, which is that to be a Democrat and a leftist today is a marker of deep emotional instability. But conversation for another time.